Okay, and it looks like we're live. I should probably click off the, yeah, okay, there we go. I clicked off the date. Yeah. Okay, we'll begin at about 10:05. So, I just gotta advertise this to, okay, yeah, oh yeah, I have the bot. So, we'll wait at 10:05. That's about 2 minutes. Also, there are some crickets outside. It's 10 o'clock, so yeah, sorry about the crickets outside if y'all can hear that. I don't know if y'all can, but just want to go to apologize for the crickets being so loud. So, also, I got a very big surprise for y'all. I think when we hit October, I've got a pretty big surprise that I think y'all are gonna like. So, if y'all like geography, y'all are gonna really like this surprise. So, we'll start in 1 minute. Let me just pull up my script real quick. I'm also just gonna quickly scan through. I need to take out any blue squiggly line on my script because I get a lot of those when I don't mean to have those. So, okay, yeah, I think we're good. Yep. All right. Well, it's 10:05, so I'm gonna begin story time. All right. Sixth grade is a very infamous school year. While it's most commonly known as that school year where popularity is determined by how loud you can shout the word penis, it's also known as the first year of middle school. Well, for most people. For me, that actually was not the case. It was instead my first and only school year at an intermediate school. Unlike middle school, where you might know at least some people your grade you went to elementary school with, I did not know anyone coming into 6th grade, but by the end of the year, I established myself as part of the group and met new people. Today, I'm going to talk about my 6th grade school year. I'm Zach, and this is Storytime 27 on July 9th, 2021. So where does this storytime take place? Well, this storytime takes place at a public intermediate school, not an early college where I go to now or a public middle school like where my 7th and 8th grade school years took place. So therefore, I'll probably explain the school much more in detail in this storytime than I normally do. Now let's talk about the backstory. I have a lot of backstory for this storytime, so let's get right into it. So in 5th grade, I went to an elementary school. In 5th grade, I alongside my sister were the most popular students at the school. Everyone knew our name and respected us. Had I gone to school with them, I probably would have been extremely popular in middle school as well. However, that didn't happen. My parents decided to transfer me to a different district so that I could be closer to where they worked. As a result, I was abandoning my comfortable and luxurious school life for a new one. My sister would not be transferred to this district until before she started the 5th grade, so therefore, it was just me moving into a new district. My mom understood that I did not know anybody, therefore, she tried to get me to attend church events in order to meet people my grade who also went to church. What do I mean by church events? 3 vacation Bible schools and a church camp. One of the vacation Bible schools was our church's VBS at the time. Another was a VBS at the church I actually go to now, and the other VBS was another church. Then the church camp was another church. These ended up being failures. While I did make friends with one person in one VBS, he was actually a grade older than me and went to a different school in a different district. So therefore, I still didn't know anyone I knew prior to the school year. The camp was also not effective. Mostly because only 3 people in my group were my grade, and only one of them did I have classes with. But he was popular, so I didn't really have much authority to talk to him. But other than these, the summer of 2015 wasn't actually that bad. We did a lot of stuff together as a family. Sometime in early August, we went on a week trip to Daytona Beach, Florida. It was one of the best vacations ever, but nonetheless, the summer of 2015 was still a very busy summer. Now that's quite a lot of backstory. Let's go on to the first day of school, being Monday, August 24th, 2015. So firstly, I want to discuss the layout of this school. So this school is huge, especially for only 5th and 6th graders. So this school had 4 halls. They were very creatively named halls 1, 2, 3, and 4. 5th graders were in halls 1 and 3, and 6th graders were split into halls 2 and 4. Each hall was split into 2 teams. My team was the Sharks. We were in hall 2. Hall 2 and hall 1 faced each other, while halls 3 and 4 faced each other. In between the halls were the library, cafeteria, gym, and a set of bathrooms. A little confusing, but honestly, it's not that important. I just want you to get an idea of how big the school is. All you need to know is that there are 4 halls, and my core classes were in hall 2. I also want to mention a thing called encores. So in elementary school, we called these specials. Here, they called it encores. These were basically extracurricular classes we did. They were art, music, PE, iSkills, and library, and I think that's it. I believe we did 3 at a time. Yeah, I remember because at the beginning of the year started out with PE, then iSkills, then art. Art and music would be swapped mid-year, and then iSkills and library would be swapped every quarter. Unfortunately, PE lasted all year. To make this whole thing make even more sense, we did PE on Monday, then iSkills on Tuesday, then art on Wednesday, then PE on Thursday, iSkills on Friday, art the next Monday, PE the next Tuesday. That's how it worked. But I guess the most important thing to know about this is that these existed, and you'll get a better understanding of them later on in story time. So now I want to talk about the first day of intermediate school. First day of a brand new school. Wow, this day was really scary and very nerve-wracking. So school started at 7:45, but I arrived at 7:25 since my dad had to get to work. That's how arrival worked almost every day. However, we could not go to our class until 7:40. Therefore, they gathered all of us into the gym and had us sit on the bleachers. The bleachers had 4 different sections, so they split us by hall. I was in hall 2, so I was in the second section. I sat beside 2 boys, but I never talked to them. Now for this, as well as all the morning gatherings, they had a teacher who I believe taught on hall 4 to look over us. I had some problems with this teacher. We got in a few arguments, mostly because she was really strict over some stuff that's just complete bullshit. I'll discuss one situation that almost got me written up in October, but I just want to go ahead and mention that. My sister actually had her as a teacher. Surprisingly, she liked her. But for me, I'm glad I didn't have this teacher. My teachers were way better, as we're going to see. Anyways, at 7:40, they got us all organized by hall and sent us to class. This was the routine every morning. Yeah, we literally walked in a single file line all the way to class every day. For reference, in 5th grade, I walked straight to class. Yeah, they were a lot stricter here in intermediate school than they were in elementary school. Now to talk about my classes. My first block was science. The Sharks team was interesting, as we didn't have a science teacher. However, both our math and English teacher were trained to teach science, so they taught us science. Science for me was taught by my math teacher. She was overall a cool and laid-back teacher from what I remember. I don't remember too much about her though. I believe she had a son who was a 5th grader, but that's all I really remember from her. But there were some situations that I do remember, as we're going to talk later on. After science came WIN, or what I need. Basically, whatever the hell you need to be successful. I was with my English teacher. We mostly did fun stuff. After WIN came encores. So on this day, it was PE. So normally, in encores, it's with just your first block, which in my case is science. However, for PE, it was us and another class from another team. Anyways, PE was pretty much a complete joke. For some reason, our teachers decided that for a 45-minute class, we would have 8 stretches and 7 exercises. Each lasted about 3 minutes. So we never really did much in PE other than these exercises. The PE teachers really liked to yell, but when she yelled, she really never was scary. Well, most of the time. There was one instance I'll discuss when we reach March that made her sound really scary. After encores came lunch. So for lunch, our team had assigned 2 tables, but you could not sit with anyone you wanted to. Instead, you had to sit in the order of your line. So that means the dude in front of you getting their lunch is who you sat beside. I always brought my lunch, so therefore I was generally one of the first people to sit down. Fortunately, I would go on to make friends with another kid who brought his lunch, so all good. After lunch, I had English, so I remember this class really well, mostly from the teacher, so this is one of my favorite teachers ever. He was super nice and such a great teacher overall. He was also responsible for getting me to read a lot. Like, I read more in 6th grade than any other school year just because he encouraged me to read a ton. I also remember him because of his life outside of teaching. I believe he worked for the Charlotte Hornets and the Carolina Panthers. The best part about this was that this is the best time to be a Panthers fan, as the Panthers were about to have probably their best season yet. So he was really popular among everyone in the school just because he worked for the Panthers and the Hornets. Then came math. Like English, math was fun. I mean, it obviously would be since math is my favorite subject, but still, math was fun. I've already talked about the math teacher since she was also my science teacher, so that's that. Then came recess, everyone's favorite part of the day. My favorite part of the day too. Recess was always really fun. So on the first day of recess, I played football. Yeah, out of all people, I played football. The funniest part was that I played with my glasses on too. My glasses at the time weren't even transcripts. What the hell was I thinking? Oh well, it was fun. I started getting closer with everyone already on just the first day, so that was a great sign. After recess, our teachers gathered us onto the hall and discussed what I'm going to call a prep talk. This prep talk was about how we are a family and how they're excited for a new school year and all that. Afterwards, we packed up and headed back home. So that's how my first day of 6th grade went. No friendships began right away, but still great progress. Now for the second day. So this day was a lot more different than the first. The reason was because instead of getting lined up and getting taken to class, we instead had to stay in the gym because the teachers were holding an assembly. Now, first off, what is an assembly? Well, these were basically when all students at the school were gathered into the gym for an event organized with the intent to teach us or remind us of something. So in this case, it was about pride. No, not that kind of pride. Why would they be teaching that to 11-year-olds? It was an acronym for perseverance, respect, integrity, driven, and I kind of forgot the E. They gathered the whole school for this to teach the 5th graders about the system, as well as remind the 6th graders. Of course, I was in the same boat as the 5th graders. However, the reason I remember this assembly is because of how the information was presented. Instead of doing some presentation for the whole school and playing a game of Kahoot afterwards, the teachers decided to present this in a song. Basically, what happens is that they created the song. Well, not really a new song, just a remix of Boom Boom Pow by the Black Eyed Peas. During the chorus, the song would be about pride, described in the letters. But then the verses would be all the same. They were about Pbis. So now I have to explain Pbis. So I'm not sure what this stood for, but basically it was a thing our school did where you had a tracker. In this tracker, you had a square for each class. At the end of the class, your teacher would give you a stamp. You needed to get a certain amount of stamps to do fun stuff. If you didn't get the amount of stamps needed, then you basically got fuged, if you know what I mean. Now, the way the teacher gave you a stamp would be by how well you behaved. If the teacher determined that you behaved well, then you got the stamp. If they felt like you were an asshole in class, then they wouldn't give you the stamp. I'll talk more about the rewards later on, as I participated in all of them since I was a good kid. So back to the song. It was basically about why Pbis is good and when you get your stamps. Which is true, Pbis was awesome. Had a lot of fun with the rewards. I don't remember too much about the song though, but I remember one of the last lines of the Pbis verse was, "And when I walk out of the room, those stamps go boom, boom, boom." That line makes literally no sense. But nonetheless, a pretty helpful song to help us remember how the school does things, but there is still a problem with the assembly. We were all given a sheet that had the lyrics to the song. Uh-oh, that's a problem. They said that they were going to have us sing the songs ourselves. So of course 11-year-old me said, "Nuh-uh, I ain't doing that shit," so I didn't sing. Seems like most others had a similar view as me, as very few people sung. Most of the teachers didn't seem to mind, but that teacher who supervised us before class got pretty infuriated. She said that if we didn't start singing, she was going to bring some of us down to sing in front of everyone. Still only a few people sang, so as a result, she called a few people. Fortunately, I was not one of them. However, the kid beside me was, so I breathed a huge sigh of relief afterwards. Now, the rest of the day wasn't too crazy. However, I do want to mention my second encore, being art. So the art teacher was strange, as she had to take the whole year off because she had a baby. Therefore, we had to sub in the whole year, or in our case, the semester, as art would be swapped with music in January. Anyways, this sub was nice. I believe she actually became the real art teacher later on, as my sister had the same sub for art 3 years after me. But anyways, she was cool. She was very laid back. She really didn't care what you did or how much you talked, as long as you didn't talk while she was talking. Encores weren't even grades, so it really didn't matter, and I think she understood this, so art was definitely my favorite encore. Next, let's talk about recess for a little bit. So we didn't play football, as well as really the rest of the school year actually. Instead, me and the boys I played football with actually played a game called Jackpot. It's where there's one guy who throws the football to everyone else, and then everyone tries to catch it. If someone catches it, then they take that dude's spot. Really simple game, and it could go on forever. It was a great way to make new friends. I had a lot of fun. One kid I remember in particular who made this game fun was a kid named Jason. Now, Jason and I would go on to become good friends in 6th grade. He was, however, a troublemaker, so I had to make sure that his behavior did not influence mine. But he was still a really cool and funny guy. Whenever he threw the football, he would shout dumb stuff. One phrase he shouted quite a lot was, "D's nuts." And whenever nobody caught it, he would say, "Ha! Got him!" During this time, "These nuts" was a pretty big meme. And of course, being a bunch of 11-year-olds, we found it pretty funny. And to be honest, at 17, I still think this is pretty funny. Not because he said "these nuts," but because our math teacher told him to stop saying it, and then he'd stop for the day, and then the next day he'd just continue saying it on. He risked getting in trouble just for our amusement. Jason is awesome. I believe in middle school, though, he would switch his ways and become a better behaved. So good for him. So that was my second day of school. Now for the third day, Wednesday, August 26, 2015. So before class, we did another assembly. It was literally the same assembly we did the day before. We would go on to do this assembly again the next day as well, just so the song could get really drilled into our heads. However, now I want to discuss the third encore, being iSkills. So iSkills is basically working with computers, more specifically the internet. We learned how to use our emails, how to log in, how to type. In reality though, I really didn't do all that much in this class. Whenever the teacher wasn't looking, I was on cool math games. So no, this was not the class that taught me how to type super efficiently. It was actually computer skills and application in 7th grade. Now, about the teacher, I don't remember much about her other than the fact that she sounded like a screaming goat. But there would be a pretty big project we do in iSkills in the winter. So I should note that unlike art, iSkills was the first quarter and the third quarter. This meant that from August to October, then from January to March. Now, I still haven't discussed two encores yet, being music and library. I'll discuss music in January and then library in October. So that's basically how my first week at intermediate school went. It felt really awkward since I was not at my old elementary school. I also had to adapt to how strict the school was. It's weird because the elementary school I went to was much less strict than my intermediate school, but intermediate school was in a different district than my elementary school, so it made sense. So now I want to discuss friends. So obviously, all the friends I had in the grade were new, but there were a couple friends I want to mention who made 6th grade better. I already discussed one, being Jason, but there were a few others too. One of those was a kid named Matthew. So Matthew was short and pretty shy, so I related to him on the shy part, not so much on the short part, as I'm pretty tall. One of the instant clicks with him though was Minecraft. So he really liked Minecraft, and so did I. Minecraft was very popular during this time, as this was before Minecraft died and then revived itself. So we had that in common. His little brother actually had my mom as a teacher during this time, and Matthew talked a lot about me to his brother. Of course it was all positive, which definitely put me in a good mood. Me and Matthew were friends in 6th and 7th grade, but in the 8th grade he'd moved schools, so I haven't talked to him in a while. I then want to mention this kid named Chase. Now, he was maybe about twice my size, but I'm not saying that he's fat. He was muscular, so if anyone tried to mess with me, I had him to rely on. I would get bullied a bit in 6th grade, but it never was serious, and like the 7th grade bullies, it was really difficult to take them seriously. Anyways, me and Chase actually started talking on the first day of school. We sat beside each other in science, so that's kind of how it started. He really liked football. He played football in middle school, and I think he plays football for his high school now. So that's actually why I played football during the first recess. He has also played jackpot with me, Jason, and some others. Matthew was with a couple other friends, so he never played jackpot. I helped Chase with schoolwork a lot, which he really liked. My help also helped him make better grades, as he made A's and B's all year long. So yeah, we had a pretty good mutual relationship going on in 6th grade. We wouldn't be friends in 7th grade though, as not only did we have no classes together, but he also became very popular, so it was difficult for us to talk, but nonetheless, he was a good friend. One last friend I want to mention was a kid named Levi. So Levi was quite similar to Matthew. He really liked Minecraft. He also really liked Bloons Tower Defense, a game I used to use quite often back when I used to record gameplay for Storytime rather than live stream them. Levi always arrived at school early like me, so therefore, we always got to sit beside or near each other, as we had to fill in our whole selected spot. I'll explain more about that in a little bit, since there's going to be a little change in how mornings before school worked. Levi and I were friends in 6th and 7th grade, but in an 8th grade we stopped talking since I didn't have any classes with him. Now I want to talk about the change in how mornings worked. So for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we sat in the bleachers. For Monday, it was simply because it was the first day of school. Then on Tuesday and Wednesday, it was of course the assembly regarding Pride. Now the way it worked for Thursday, as well as the rest of the school year, was that instead of the bleachers, the lady who supervised us thought that we were not worthy enough so that we would of the bleachers. So she decided that for the remainder of the year, we were going to sit on the floor. Yeah, let's get everyone's ass all dirty and dusty before school, because that's a great idea. Just like with the bleachers, we were split by our hall. So of course, since I was on hall 2, I had to sit in the farthest group to the right. Overall, really stupid decision in my opinion. Now let's move on to September, finally. So to start, let's discuss a little program I mentioned in Storytime 10 that we of course did in 6th grade as well. Only that 6th grade was when it had a massive impact. So this is an accelerated reader, also known as AR. It's where you read a book and then took a quiz on what you read. Each book was worth a certain amount of points. Making 100 on the book would give you 100% of the points it was worth. 90 gives 90%, then anything under 70 gives you nothing. You also had to keep at least an 85% average too. At the end of the quarter, you had to earn a certain amount of points. AR counted about 10% of your grade for English. And if you met your goal, then you got 100 for AR. I criticized this program in Storytime 10 for putting a ton of weight on me on top of all other weight that I had from depression. But in 6th grade though, I loved AR. The reason was because my English teacher. The reason I considered him to be one of the best teachers I've had is because he made me like AR, something no other teacher ever did. He encourages us not to only meet our goal, but he encouraged us to go farther. I would take this encouragement and earn more points than I think I ever earned in any other grade combined. Yeah, I read a lot in 6th grade. One way he encouraged us to read more was by introducing us to book series and recommending books. So after recess, we normally would have a study hall. However, for the month of September, we didn't do that. Instead, he gathered the whole team into his room. There, he read us a book called A Series of Unfortunate Events, The Bad Beginning, Book 1. So A Series of Unfortunate Events was a 13-book series about 3 rich children whose parents died from a house fire. The oldest of them was a 14-year-old girl who liked to build, the middle was a 12-year-old boy who liked to read, and then the youngest was a baby girl who loved to bite things. As a result, they had to live with their Count Olaf, a distant family member. Count Olaf was not a nice person. He not only abused them, but he was also after their fortune their parents left behind. Although more than likely he was just after some underage pussy or some shit like that. I mean, Count Olaf fits the stereotypical description of a pedophile. You can't say I'm wrong. Each of the 13 books were worth 6 points on average. My goal for the first quarter was 17 points, so these books provided me with a little over a third of the points I needed. While our English teacher only read the first book, he ended up inspiring me and many others to finish the series. As a result, I'm pretty sure our team had the most people out of any other team to meet their goal, as well as the most to double and triple their goal. Now I want to talk about the first test we had for math, being the second Friday of the year, September 4th. So according to our teacher, the class didn't do so well. It was a review of 5th grade, but still not many people did well. Some of the questions had parts, so some students literally circled the part letter for their question. Yeah, part A asks you to do this, and some students literally circled A. Yeah, that's a little strange. However, there was one 100 in this class. Who made that 100? Me, of course. Therefore, I got to explain some of the questions. Of course, I didn't cheat, so I was able to explain all of them. However, I don't know much how better this class got, as my classes ended up being switched near the end of September. So the way the classes worked was that second block math was the more advanced class, and then third block was just regular math. I was in regular math since the school didn't quite know how good I was at math, since I didn't go to their school for 5th grade, but in the first month I showed that I was way above my league in math. So I got my classes switched. Unfortunately, that meant leaving Matthew, Chase, Jason, and Levi, but I adapted and ultimately met new people, and I think it was good for me. The content was a little bit harder and more critical thinking, and yet I still managed to do incredible in this class. So all is good. It also provided some convenience, as my first block science was with my math teacher, so I didn't have to move just yet. Taking a little soda break. I now want to go back to English, so I want to discuss a thing called stilms, also known as root words, basically prefixes and suffixes. So in English, we never had vocabulary, unlike science and math where we did. Yeah, we had vocabulary for math. It was basically 300, so not that bad. But what we did with the stilms though was super fun. So we had a notebook. On each page, we would create photo bowls for the 5 stems of the week. In class, we also did motions to represent each stem. These helped out a lot when remembering stem meanings. We got to help our teacher with the motions too. It was really fun. So like for the stem bye, we would point 2 fingers because it meant 2. That's how motions worked. They were very effective and made learning much easier and more enjoyable. We did stems in 7th, 8th, and 10th grade, but we never did these motions, mostly because we had to learn more than 5 stems a week in later grades. Now I want to talk a little about a little thing that we did for WIN. So basically we learned how a court case worked. What we did was that our teachers wrote a court case story of the 3 little pigs. Basically, the 3rd pig got in trouble for burning the wolf. So there was a court case for it. However, this was a play form. So what did we do? We acted it. We all got different parts. I was the defense attorney. I defended the pig. However, interestingly, the play didn't say who was guilty. That decision was up to the jury, and of course the foreman stated the verdict. Our jury determined that the pig was guilty, but overall, it was still really fun. Last thing before I wrap up September, I want to mention a dance I went to. So, I hate dancing. I did not want to go. However, Mom made me go. She wanted me to make friends here. It really didn't work out. I was just that awkward kid. None of the friends I had went, so I didn't meet anyone. It was also super cringy since they played Kids Bop rather than the real song. Therefore, I just stood near the corner of the gym the whole time. So, it sucked. We'd have another dance in January, but Mom fortunately didn't make me go to that one, so I didn't go. So then that's all for September. Let's talk about October. October was much more eventful. So let's start off with that situation between me and the teacher who supervised us in the morning. So I believe Levi was behind me. So I did what any normal human being would do and talk to him. Apparently, the teacher made a huge fuss before I got to school about how we need to stop turning around and how we need to be looking in front of us. So I was super confused when she started freaking the hell out over me turning around. She had me sit beside her for the rest of the time. Well, damn, lady. Out of all the things you get mad at someone for, you get mad at them for turning around. You might as well get mad at someone for breathing too much. Clearly, someone didn't drink their morning coffee. What are you going to do next? Write someone up for eating Honey Nut Cheerios for lunch? But in all seriousness, though, wow, she's not playing around. I can't really get mad at this though, since this was almost 6 years ago. I also didn't get in any trouble since she didn't know my name, as she was a teacher on Hall 4. If she knew who I was, she probably would have written me up, so I got pretty lucky. I would get into some serious trouble later on for something, probably even more stupid than this. I also want to bring up a program our school did that my English teacher ran. This is a thing called All Pro Dads. It's basically where on the first Friday of every month starting October, there was a meeting. Each meeting would involve a student and their dad or a father figure basically hearing a lesson from my teacher. We discussed how to have a better relationship. We'd also be served breakfast. And then at the end of every meeting, there would be a raffle. Me and Dad once won, but that wouldn't be until April. Now, when I first heard about it, I initially thought that I would not be able to do this because Dad had work, since it was from 7:45 to 8:30. Dad starts work at 8, and my school was about 30 minutes from his job. Would normally be about 15, but considering Charlotte traffic is absolutely insane around 8 o'clock, I thought he wouldn't have time to get to work. Fortunately, Dad was able to talk to his boss about this, and therefore, we were able to do this. All of the All-Pro Dads meetings were fun, and I'm really glad I got to do them. Of course, the only meeting I really remember is the April one, since we won the raffle, but I still remember being excited for All-Pro Dads every month. So now we have hit the end of the first quarter. How many AR points did I have? Well, I needed 17. I got 52. Yeah, I told y'all I read a lot in 6th grade. It's all thanks to my English teacher. So our teachers promised us that if we doubled our AR goal, they would provide us with a pizza party while watching cartoons for lunch one day. It would be an extended lunch that day too. If we tripled it, then we would get ice cream with it. Since I tripled my goal, I got all those things. So what cartoon did I watch? We watched Animaniacs. Very classic cartoon. I don't remember what all we watched, but I do remember watching Gakko's World. This was 2015, so I didn't think much about it. But if this was in 2021, oh god, I would be laughing to death whenever Yakko says... But it was still fun. I also got pizza and ice cream with it too. Life was good that day. That was interesting, the only time they rewarded us for doubling and tripling our goal. The other 3 quarters they didn't reward us, but I still gained a ton of points. In fact, I would go on to earn even more points in the second quarter than the first. Now for the Pbis Award. What did we get? We had a fun day. There were a bunch of places set up so that we could do different activities. I believe I was bowling with Matthew and Levi. It was really fun. I believe we also got served snacks as well. So now, I'm going to discuss grades. So out of all the classes I had, the only classes that counted as grades were science, math, and English, which is like how elementary school worked. I ended up making all A's this quarter. This was the first time I made all A's since first grade, so I was pretty happy. There were also really high A's as well, with my lowest grade that quarter being I think a 95. So I was doing really well in terms of grades. So now we are in the second quarter, so that means we no longer had ice skills. We would have it again in the third quarter though, which won't be until January. So anyways, our new encore was library. So in this encore, the librarian had us do random projects. Yeah, it's really difficult to give a general description, as it's pretty difficult to describe. We didn't even read books, damn it! What's the point of a library then? And shit, encores aren't even grades, so why? Anyways, we did 2 projects for this encore, one for each quarter. Well, of course, from now on until January, I'll be discussing the first project, and in the spring I'll discuss the second one. Anyways, our project was to do a talk show on immigration from a specific time period. We were assigned what country and time period to do. My group had to do immigrants from Italy between 1870 and 1920. That's why I refer to this project as the Italian Immigration Project. Anyways, our teacher chose who we sat with, and unfortunately, I was with the bullies. That sucked, but remember, these weren't the 8th grade bullies. These bullies actually felt more like friends who liked to poke fun at me, so it was all good. So our first thing to do was to create a Google document that had our names, nation, time period, and information. We also had to record down our links for the sources we use. We go on to do a lot of technical difficulties with this project too. I'll discuss the talk show part later, but now we're just gathering information. So then that brings us to November. Overall, this was a very uneventful month. Nothing special really happened. But then there was the next part about the Italian immigration, the report. So our group had to write a report about the topic. We had one person write. I was not that person. Of course, if it was today, then I'd definitely be writing it since I have a lot of experience with writing thanks to Storytime. Overall, the report was pretty low quality, which, I mean, that's kind of expected for a bunch of 6th graders, so I don't think that the librarian really cared. I'm gonna take another soda break. One last thing I want to mention for November was for when. Remember, I had my English teacher as my win teacher, so one day we did a writing seminar. In this seminar, we were split into 2 tables. One member in each table would come up with a story and write about a paragraph. And then the other person from the table would continue the story. They could not write their own story though. It had to be what's that word? I wrote it very bad on. I said it relates. That's not a good word to use. It had to be chronological to the other person's story. Yeah, that's the word I was thinking. Finally, once everyone wrote one paragraph, it would go back to the original writer and they would finish the story. This was really fun. So my group consisted of me, 4 boys, and our English teacher. I was the original writer, so of course being the 11-year-old I was in 2015, I chose to write about Minecraft. What else would I write about? All the other boys played Minecraft too. However, our English teacher was the 3rd person to write. He did not know anything about Minecraft, so it was a little awkward on his part, but nonetheless, the story was actually fire. So let's discuss the plot of the story, starting off with my first part. So the story talks about a character in Minecraft. They were in a cave, trying to mine some diamonds. That's all I remember. The next dude wrote about while mining, a creeper came up behind the player and exploded. It left them with only half a heart. Fortunately, they had some cooked pork chop on him, so he was able to recover. But luckily enough, the creeper explosion actually revealed a clump of 6 diamonds. Then came our English teacher's part. You could tell he didn't know what he's doing here. He started out by using some imagery to describe the diamonds, and I think he actually did a good job of that. Diamonds are the 2nd most valuable material in Minecraft, only behind netherite, but this is 2015, so diamonds were still the most valuable material in the game. And ironically, our English teacher actually managed to compare the imagery of diamonds with how valuable they were really well. But then it goes downhill. He referred to the character as Arnold. I never mentioned his name because this really wasn't a story for a main character to have a name. That's actually quite common in my writing style today. Whenever I write short stories on my own time, I almost never name anyone. Storytime is of course an exception, as it actually happened since Storytime actually did happen. Like, these events are true, and also because I named friends. But that's it. So now we get to Arnold, who mines some diamonds and is blinded by how brilliant the gleam from the diamonds are. So Arnold kind of messes things up, but in the end, I managed to change his name to a name y'all guys might recognize. I'll discuss that in a bit. So the dude after our teacher decided to have Arnold get out of the cave and participate in a Hunger Games tournament. I'm really happy they chose this topic, because Hunger Games were my specialty when I played Minecraft as a kid. I'd played them as a teen when I returned to the game in 2019, but now as a young adult, I really don't play Hunger Games anymore. I mostly play Bed Wars now. But back to 6th grade me, it was a lot easier for me to talk about Hunger Games since I had expertise in that field. The next dude just talked about the Hunger Games and matchup and the last two opponents were. Then it was time for me to finish off the story. I wrote about how Arnold heard a song play randomly. This song, you legends might remember, was Hunger Games by Bajan Canadian. This put any Minecrafter into the mood to play some Hunger Games. But when he heard the song, Arnold realized something. He wasn't Arnold or just any normal person. He was the legendary Reggie248. If you don't know, Reggie248 is me. That's what I used to go by before I changed my channel to my real name. So yeah, this Arnold guy was actually me. I went in and won the Hunger Games tournament. Now, this ending was actually based on a pretty funny coincidence that happened with me. So whenever I heard the Hunger Games song, I would always win my next Hunger Games. Kind of ironic, but it was true. I just hear the Hunger Games song and then bam, I'm gonna win my next Hunger Games. It's also ironic because in the spring, I would actually read the Hunger Games books, so pretty ironic. So that was our story. As for the other group, I don't remember too much about theirs. All I remember was the first sentence of the story was, once upon a time in a land far, far away, there was a frog, and a frog. Yeah, I remember the story as being pretty humorous all around, but that's about it. I also remember one of the frogs was given our English teacher's name too, so that was pretty funny. But other than that, I don't remember much from it. I wish I did though, as by the first line you could tell that this story was fire. So that's all that happened in November. Let's move on to December. December had a little bit more going for it. So let's start off with art. So the school did an art thing every year where each student had to draw a piece of artwork. Then that piece of art would be put on things like hoodies, coffee mugs, and other stuff. They did this to raise money for something I forgot. I'm not the best artist, so what did I draw? Well, it's hard to remember, but it does not look like art. It looked like there was a horse, and it appeared that a taxi or some other car was trying to drive into that horse's ass. And there was elephants on top of the horse? I don't even know. But the most hilarious part about this was that this was actually sold. I'm not even kidding. This is one of the most popular pieces of art sold during this fundraiser. Why people want to drink out of a coffee mug of a horse getting its ass rammed into, I don't know. But people legit bought this. What kind of... Are they even human? Like... People actually bought that. I'm not even kidding. Now let's discuss progress on the Italian immigration project. So now we obviously had all the information for the project. Now we had to write the script for the talk show. We had to determine who played who and who said what and whatnot. How this worked was that me and another person were the immigrants. And then there was a host of the talk show who asked questions. And then their camera girl held the iPad, which is what we used to record. For the script, we simply wrote on note cards on what we had to say, so we didn't have to remember anything. After finishing the script, we had to do a bibliography. I remember this as the first bibliography I ever did. Of course, this whole thing was very poorly cited, as it was the first time we ever did a bibliography. In fact, this was the first time we ever heard the word bibliography. So of course it wasn't the best. I don't think I even did another bibliography until 9th grade, as that's when I began writing papers. I don't think we were required to use either MLA or APA, but I remember the librarian showing us how to use EasyBib, although it was stupidly slow just to how many ads and scams that appeared on that website. I personally use Cite This For Me whenever I make bibliographies now, and I recommend it since the ads don't slow down the process, but we were still able to cite our sources. So afterwards, we recorded the video. The recording went pretty well. I mean, sure, it was super cringy since it was a video of 3 kids who don't act or sound like Italians at all. Overall, the video just sucked, but I mean, it got the job done. One last thing before we could say we were finished with the video, though, would be the making of a QR code. We had to create a QR code for the video. I don't remember doing any of this, as someone else in my group did it, but they added the QR code on the document so that whenever the librarian scanned it, she could see the video. It unfortunately came in handy on our last day of library until March. I'll get to that later. Next, I want to discuss AR again. So my English teacher was thoroughly impressed by how much I read in the first quarter, so he amped up my goal to 20 points. Not too bad, so then very early December would be the month that I finished a series of unfortunate events. I took the test on the final book, and I believe I had a total of 46 points after taking a test on it. I should go ahead and mention that points from the first quarter do not carry on, so these points I received since October. Therefore, I had more than doubled my goal. Later on that day, in English, my English teacher calls me to his desk to have a chat. So he decided that because I've been doing so well with AR, that he was going to increase my goal from 20 to 23 points. He knew I had a goal of tripling my goal. Therefore, I would have to get a nice 69 points to reach my goal. This is another example of how my English teacher pushed us to read more. He never pushed our goal too excessively, but he did push it a little bit to make it a little more challenging to double or triple the goal. Therefore, now that a series of unfortunate events was over, I had to find a new book series to read, so that's when I decided to pick back up Harry Potter. Now, I read The Sorcerer's Stone in 5th grade. I also read about half of the Chamber of Secrets until I got bored, so might as well finish this behemoth of a series. Reading Harry Potter is no joke. Every book after book 4 was like at least 650 pages long, but I did it. So therefore, that's what I did. I finished the Chamber of Secrets as well as read The Prisoner of Azkaban and The Goblet of Fire in the second quarter. As a result, I managed to triple my goal at the end of the quarter. I had 72 points that quarter, more points in one quarter than any other quarter. So then it's time for Christmas. Well, not yet. We still have the last day of school before Christmas 2015, so on this day, it was pajama day. You could go to school in your pajamas that day. I didn't take advantage of it though. I just wore a pair of blue jeans instead like I normally do. However, I remember on this day we got the entire team into our math teacher's room. There we ate snacks, drank sodas, and watched the Polar Express. I don't remember too much due to time, but I remember this being fun and a nice way to wrap up the last day before Christmas break. And then of course came Christmas break. So for Christmas, I got an iPod Touch. This was the same iPod I used to record my first YouTube videos. I also remember going to Delaware to visit family the day after Christmas. I remember just sitting in the van on my iPod playing BTD5 while Dad was driving. We got stuck in traffic while in Durham, even though it was like 9 o'clock at night. But I was still enjoying myself nonetheless. Good times. I believe we got into even more traffic in Richmond. The drive back though was better regarding traffic. So then we were in January, a new year, 2016. 2016 was probably the third best year of my life, only behind 2018 and 2019. Overall, it was a great year. This would be, of course, the year that I started my YouTube channel, as well as begin middle school that August. But for this story time, I'll only talk about January through June, since that was when I was in 6th grade. So to start out, let's discuss the last thing we did with the Italian immigration project. So we all got to grade each other's group project. Basically, we were given a rubric and had to grade them based on the rubric. Most groups had 1s and 2s all around. My group had 3s and 4s all around. 4 is the best, by the way, so needless to say that we had the best project. But it really does not matter since this is not being taken as a grade. So now I want to talk about one nitpick I had with the Encore teachers. So our Encore teachers seem to have the need that our stuff should be counted as grades. This only applies to my library as well as iSkills, as we're going to see in a minute. But it seemed like the teachers really wanted their class to be a grade. I believe the librarian tried to talk to our teachers about making it count as a grade for social studies, which was a little weird since we didn't take social studies in 6th grade. What's she going to do now, count it as a math grade? Nah, our teachers told the librarian to screw off. So I'm glad the teachers were on our side here. Speaking of math, I want to discuss what we were doing in math. So we were in our unit on expressions and equations, more commonly known as algebra. I'm glad we did this unit, as it did help me some in Algebra 1 in 8th grade, although that class still kicked my ass. But as you can expect, we studied algebra in this unit. So our teacher's idea to teach this material was to do foldables. These foldables were overall pretty fun. I enjoyed folding them up and being able to look back on them when it came time for testing. Some of the foldables were pretty difficult to do, but for the most part, they did the job. The unit would not be finished until March, as this was a very big unit. So now near the end of January, the second quarter finishes. All A's again like the first quarter, and of course I tripled my goal. Now for Pbis, I really don't remember what they did for the Pbis Award for the second quarter. I remember what they did for the third and fourth quarter, just not the second. So therefore, I can't really talk about it. All I know is that it did happen since I never got into much trouble. As a result of it being a new quarter, we had new encores. So first off, we were returning to iSkills. This time though, we actually had to do work. So in the beginning of the year, we of course learned how to use a computer and how to type and all that. This time, we learned how to create a website using Google Sites. This is classic Google Sites, by the way, as this was in early 2016. But what was our website supposed to be about? Well, before creating the website, we were assigned one of two topics. We could be assigned either research some active volcano in Hawaii, or we could research the San Francisco earthquake in 1906. I was assigned to do the San Francisco earthquake. Afterwards, we did a seminar with our iSkills teacher about how to find reliable websites for sources. We were not going to do a bibliography like we did in library, but we still had to create works cited subpage with the links. The website we used as references had to come from experts. A little ironic that our goal was to make a reliable website on this information, even though we were a bunch of 6th graders, not experts. Hopefully nobody used any of our website for this information, because they probably are the last places you would want to find your information. So then let's discuss the other encore now, as the actual website building in iSkills would not begin until February. So my new encore that would replace art would be music. Now, I am not a musical person. I mean, sure, I listen to a lot of music, like I always listen to music whenever I'm writing scripts for Storytime, but I don't play anything. Well, in music, we learn how to play an instrument. But before I talk about that, I want to talk about the teacher for a sec. So while I enjoyed music, I did not like my music teacher. She was overall very strict and at many times, she seemed to act like a bitch when it was completely unnecessary. Like our routine music was at the beginning of the day, we would sing a song. If we didn't sing, we could not play the instrument. I'm not sure how singing a pentatonic song is going to help us play an instrument, but I mean, that's her logic. I mostly just lip sung, since I really suck at singing. She said that lip singing was prohibited too, but I never got caught, mostly because I was generally sat pretty far away from her, so good thing I never had to sing, as I could tell that many of my fellow classmates were very nervous and felt pretty awkward singing in front of each other. So what instrument did we play? Well, that would be the ukulele. So we basically learned how to play one, as well as how to play different chords and frets. I was able to get really good at playing the ukulele, like I could play a variety of songs on it. I would even go on to buy my own ukulele that summer and continue playing it till around mid-7th grade. I still have that ukulele, but I can't really play it. The only song I remember how to play is Smoke on the Water. But to get back on topic, I got really good at it, and I enjoyed it too. I just didn't like my teacher. So now, nothing else happens throughout the month of January. Let's move on to February. So this is the month where iSkills takes the spotlight. So now, it was time to build the website. We first had to gather our sources and write a report, kind of similar to what we did for the Italian immigration project. This included all the information our teacher wanted us to have, as well as our sources, but unlike our project in library, we didn't have to cite our sources. We just had to provide links, so that was a little easier. Then comes the actual process of building the website. So our website had to have a title page, some basic information, a photo gallery, and some other stuff. Overall, this is not too hard since we had the report and the links. For the most part, it was just copying and pasting information from the report onto the website, so it wasn't that bad. Now let's go back a bit to the early February. So this was probably the best season to be a Panthers fan. Of course, any season is a good season to be a Panthers fan, especially if you're like me who lives in Charlotte. But this also the season that we went 15-1. And of course, our English teacher worked for the Panthers, so you bet that we were all super hyped for Super Bowl 50. We were up against the Denver Broncos, and then we lost. Yeah, me and everyone else at school were furious the next day. Nothing got done that Monday due to our anger. The entire city was pissed off too. I mean, why wouldn't we? We just lost to a bunch of Mountain Colorado boys. Why wouldn't we? Our English teacher wasn't there that Monday since he was flying back from San Francisco, but I bet he was pretty upset too. I also want to mention All-Pro Dads again. The reason is because in February, a bunch of dads as well as students got together and built a Gaga box outside. Now, me and my dad didn't join, as I believe we had some event going on that weekend. They built this, but they were successful. As a result, the whole school was able to enjoy Gaga Ball. So Gaga Ball was a game where it is a game where there is a game. Oh my god. I should have paid more attention to writing. Anyways, Gaga Ball is where you are in a small pit with a bunch of other people. There's also a ball. You want to hit that ball to make sure to hit someone else. If you get hit by the ball, you are out. If you hit the ball outside of the arena, you're out. Last person standing wins. Overall, it's a very fun game. And because we had this pit, we would play Gaga Ball every Friday after lunch. So then that's all that happened in February. Overall, a very uneventful month. Now let's discuss March, which is a very eventful month. So to start, I'm going to go ahead and mention finishing up iSkills, but I'll wait until the end of the month before I discuss the return of library. So now that we finished our websites, we had to grade each other's website. I believe you just chose who you graded and that was that. I, along with everyone else, just simply gave everyone 4s or 0s, depending on if we liked that person, since we knew that iSkills wasn't a grade. However, afterwards, our iSkills teacher said that she was going to talk to our math teacher about making it a science grade. Fortunately, like library, our math teacher just told our iSkills teacher to go screw herself, so we got out of that taking our grade. So now I want to talk about something pretty crazy that happened in math. So for homework one day, we had to create a division problem involving fractions. We also had to create some charts or something with it. I created a division problem, but I didn't include the chart. So what happened? Well, I got silent lunch, but I wasn't the only one. I believe about 1/3 of the entire team didn't do the homework, and then half of the team was in the similar boat as me. So therefore, about 83% of the entire team had silent lunch. The reason I bring this up is because generally only about maybe 5 out of the team's 55 students got silent lunch. So for like 45 of the students being silent lunch was huge. It was also so huge that before second block, our team had a team meeting. Our teachers basically scolded us for not drawing a chart. Everyone who did the homework in full got 100. Everyone who did it but not the chart got an 80. And then those who didn't get a 0. I believe this actually broke the school record for the most people in silent lunch on a team. And we had far fewer people than everyone else. But I also remember this as my math teacher pulled me to the side after this meeting. I'm not sure why she pulled me to the side out of everyone else, but she basically told me that it was okay, that I shouldn't feel too bad about myself. A little strange that she chose me out of all people, as throughout that meeting I really had no reaction, but okay. I next want to discuss a new student. He was pretty nerdy, so kind of like me. He liked Minecraft and other video games, although unlike me, he was only a C student. As a result, we became good friends for the time. I will not, however, mention his name, as we got into some pretty serious drama that May. And then throughout the middle school, we had even more drama, so therefore, I'm not going to mention his name like I do with my friends. So let's discuss wrapping up third quarter. So grade-wise, I made my lowest grade all year, a 94 in science. But I mean, come on, that's still a good grade, so not bad. As for AR, I did not triple my goal like I did in the first and second quarter. I only doubled my goal. I believe I had to get 23 points again. I only got like 48. I read Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, but I also read a series called All the Wrong Questions. This is a book series by the same author of a series of unfortunate events, Lemony Snicket. So I had some pretty high hopes for this series, and wow, I was disappointed. This series just sucked. I read the first 3 of the 4 book series, and then after the third, I just gave up. Because these books were super confusing and really was just poorly written. So I gave up after the third book, but it did get me to double my goal at least. So now let's discuss the Pbis Award. So I'd rather been with those who didn't get enough stamps than those who did. Why? Well, this is because this is a dance in a very similar fashion at this dance we did back in September. I was not expecting a dance to be the reward, so therefore, I was not prepared. We were allowed to stay in the hallway at least, which is what I decided to do. They also provided concessions, which sucks since I didn't have any money, so I did not really enjoy myself at this dance. Now how about we take a field trip? So in November, our school announced that in March we were going to go to the Georgia Aquarium in Atlanta, Georgia. I went here in the summer of 2014, and I had an awesome experience, so I was pretty excited to go back. So that's what we did on March 18th. Most 6th graders, March 12th I meant. Most 6th graders went on this trip, and pretty obviously I did too. The new kid also came. We did all have to wake up pretty early though. I believe I woke up at like 5 o'clock in the morning. I had to be at school by 5:45. So my dad took me to school. On the way, he bought me a Coke as well as a full family-sized bag of Doritos. So needless to say that I was set. Now, Atlanta is about 3.5 hours away from Charlotte, so therefore we did not take a normal school bus. Our school instead rented a coach bus. You know, the buses that have movie players as well as portable chargers and comfortable seats. So the drive down and back was really awesome. I believe a total of 4 movies were played on the way up and back. The first movie was the series of unfortunate events movie. This is really the only movie I watched. As for the rest of the trip, I was on my iPod playing BTD5. The new kid sat beside me, by the way. He was on his 3DS playing Pokemon. Now we have arrived in Atlanta. One of the first things we saw was the CNN headquarters. Now the reason I bring this up is because throughout the year, we would occasionally watch CNN Student News. Just like I said in Storytime 15, if you remember Carl as Zeus, then you are an absolute legend. We all then proceeded to start making puns just like a Zeus did after every video, so that was pretty funny. So then we reached the aquarium. So we were all split into different groups. My group consisted of me, the new kid, and 3 other boys. I wasn't exactly friends with the others, but I was cool with them, and they were cool with me. So it was good. We all got to tour the aquarium, but we had to stick together. One thing I remember from when we were touring the aquarium was when all of us took a group project by a tank with a whale shark in it. This was a really cool picture. It actually was in the yearbook. However, it also was a strange picture. The reason is because I wore my glasses in this photo. Now, in most photos, I don't wear my glasses because light often reflects off of them. And that's kind of what happened here. So, whoopsie daisy, my group is going to look back in their yearbooks 30 years later and laugh about my glasses. But oh well, it's not a big deal. Just wanted to mention that since it was pretty funny. And it was rare. Then we had lunch at the aquarium. I don't remember lunch, but I just remembered that it happened. Lunch, of course, was with my group. We probably did something stupid, but I don't remember. Afterwards, everyone got together and we got to see the Dolphin Show. Basically, this involved some trainers swimming with dolphins. The dolphins would do some really cool tricks. However, in these tricks, the dolphins would splash us. Well, it really depended on what row we were on. If we sat on the first few rows, then we definitely would get splashed. Fortunately, the aquarium outlined which seats might result in you getting wet. I was pretty far back, as I did not want to go back home soaking wet. Same case with the new kid. I also had my iPod in my pocket, as I didn't want it getting wet either. The other 3 boys were pretty crazy, so they sat in the first row. Needless to say that they got pretty soaked. But even then, I would get soaked a little afterwards. So after seeing the Dolphin Show, we watched a 4D movie. A 4D movie is basically where you get to feel the effects in the movie. We watched Happy Feet. We got to feel our seat shake and rumble. We also got sprinkled down with water on some occasions. My iPod didn't get damaged, so it was all good. Finally, it was time to leave, so before we left, the vice principal gave all of us snacks and a soda. I should note that the school had 2 vice principals, one for each grade. The 6th grade vice principal joined us on the trip. We got to choose our snacks. I chose Doritos. Of course, afterwards I poured the Doritos onto my already family-sized bag of Doritos. So I was rich with Doritos. I let everyone around me have some. I believe even the vice principal got some Doritos too. So yeah, the Dorito bag came pretty important on this trip. So before I discuss arriving back home, I want to mention a rest stop we took in, I believe, Greenville, South Carolina. So while our bus had a portable bathroom, it smelled like shit, which, I mean, is kind of what you'd expect it to smell like. But it smelled so bad you might as well wait for a rest stop. So that's why it was not used. So back to the rest stop, we did what we had to do, and then we got back to the bus. Now, before we hit the road again, there was one kid in particular who did something pretty funny. This was one of the people in my group while at the aquarium, by the way. He was also very popular. Anyways, we went into the bus's bathroom. People were joking about it, and then he opens the door slightly and starts peeping out the door smiling. It was pretty funny. Me as well as the rest of the bus laughed. And then we arrived back at school. I believe we took 3 buses. We were the second bus to arrive. There was quite a lot of traffic in Spartanburg, so we did not get back to school until about 7:30. The last bus didn't get back until like 8, so we got lucky. Then of course the line as usual. Dad picked me up that day. He then bought me McDonald's and then we headed back home. Overall, this was an awesome day and I had a lot of fun on this trip. Now, back to school. How about we discuss our test on expressions and equations unit we had been doing foldables on since January. Because, wow, our teacher was furious over these grades. I believe the average grade in our class was like a 65, and the average on the team was a 57. Yeah, that is not good. Our teacher basically spent the whole period yelling at us over it, which I mean, I understand her frustration, but I think that she should have evaluated her teaching, which she also criticized too. She actually complained that the foldables were, while fun to do, they were not a good idea for teaching, and to be honest, I agree. They never really helped me do the math. They just taught me what it was. I made a 76 on this test, so I did better than most at least, but man, she was furious over this test. So that brings us to our next unit for math. This was our geometry unit. Nothing too complicated. It was just memorizing formulas. And oh god, did our teacher have us memorize these formulas. So for homework every night, we had to write down each formula 5 times each. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. But it did at least help us remember the formulas. And that will come in super handy for the rest of April. But we're only in March, so let's stick to March. So on Friday, March 19th, there was a fight in PE. Now, I did not have PE that day. However, I still saw the fight. Basically, I was asked by my music teacher to give something to the PE teacher. I delivered that thing to the PE teacher, but then I was about to leave. 2 boys started getting into a verbal fight. They screamed and cussed, and then unexpectedly, it got physical. I should know that this was our English teacher's well, actually, unexpectedly was wrong learn. I meant expectedly, like, it was pretty obvious that they were going to get in a physical fight. I should note that this was our English teacher's homeroom. Remember, I had my math teacher for homeroom. Anyways, I saw the two boys fight. No punches were dealt, but they were basically shoving each other. The PE teacher didn't just start screaming in such a demonic voice and split the two boys up. She then took them to the office. Pretty wild. The rest of the PE students were called back to go to their homeroom. I then went back to music and told everyone about it. Literally right then, our homeroom teacher came over to come pick us back up. So fights in intermediate school were very rare. So as you can expect, everyone was all over the place. The school didn't go on lockdown, but our team was panicking. So our English teacher went to deal with these two boys. And then our math teacher gets his homeroom into her room. So we had the whole team in my math teacher's room. We didn't all watch cartoons for the duration of Encore as well as Win and First Block, all the way until lunch. Yeah, pretty insane. I'm not sure why they got into a fight, but wow, they got the whole team scared. This is the only fight I can remember that whole year. Of course, 7th grade was the next year, and oh god, that year had a ton of fights. But this kind of prepared us for what we were going up against in middle school. So to wrap up March, I want to discuss library again, as we now had it for the 4th quarter. So in the 2nd quarter, we of course did the Italian immigration project. For the 4th quarter, we were going to work on a presentation about careers. Basically, we researched what we wanted to be, and did some research on it. Now, I've been very crazy about what I want to be all my life. Like, I started out wanting to be a video game designer, then I wanted to be a lawyer, then a teacher, and now I want to be a CPA. I'm pretty much set on accounting right now. Now, not only that, but like, other than the lawyer, I kind of already do these things. I've played video games for 15 years now, so that's where the designer part is. I could also consider myself a teacher, since I do teach a lot of stuff here on Storytime. While of course most Storytimes are generally meant to be humorous videos about my life experiences, except for a few that are very serious, every Storytime still has a lesson to learn from it. Yes, even this Storytime has a lesson, but I'm going to let you try to figure out what it is. So I kind of have that teaching role fulfilled, and then in college I plan on studying accounting, so I'm like all over the place regarding careers. When I was in 6th grade, I of course wanted to be a video game designer, so that's what career I chose. We basically had to create a Google Slides on our career of choice. We had to include the average salary, job information, job outlook, required education, skills needed, and all that other shit you could probably guess. Like the Italian immigration project, we had to make a bibliography and a QR code for our presentation. I did this project alone, so therefore I kind of had to teach myself how to do this, but it wasn't that bad. It was overall a really easy project. We knew that this was not a grade, so therefore we didn't really try that much. So then really that's the end of March 2016. I should mention that the career project for library was actually finished in May, but it was just so small compared to the Italian immigration project that I just did everything in March just to save time. So then that brings us to April. Like April 2017, April 2016 was overall a very uneventful month. However, there are two things I want to mention. Both of them relate, well there's three things. Two of them are for math. So first off, I want to talk about another math test. This math test was on the geometry unit. Not just the class, but an entire team did much better on it. I, along with about 5 others in the class, made 100 on it. And almost everyone made at least an 80, which is a B by the way. So our teacher was much happier with this test than the previous one, so no scolding on this test. The next thing I want to mention for math would be a project from our geometry unit. So we as a team decided to build a city. We were allowed to choose between either a building, a business, or a residential building. The only requirement was that the building had to fit inside the spot. I had a business spot. I built a skyscraper with 3 spaghetti boxes. So how did this compare to everyone else? Well, while it was the tallest business building built, it was only tied as being the tallest building. So this one kid had a residential plot, and he decided that with that plot, he was going to build a kind of a beach house-like house on top of a bunch of sticks. It was not until we actually began plotting our structure when we realized that he definitely built his structure too high, especially when it is tied with a freaking skyscraper as tallest building. Pretty strange how that happened. The whole team joked about this. Finally, before wrapping up April, I want to mention All-Pro Dads one last time. So in the April session, me and Dad won the raffle. Finally, that took a while. I believe we won a Hornets coffee mug or something. I don't think we have it anymore, but it's still cool that we won. So now we reach May. This is a pretty eventful month. So let's start off with something that probably the most pettiest thing a teacher has ever done to me. So remember when I mentioned getting into drama with the new kid? Well, this is where the drama started. So I was getting super annoyed by this kid, so I stopped talking to him. Then got to the point where he stopped talking to me. But then at lunch on May 6th, he told his friend about it. And you know what that kid did? He went to my math teacher and snitched on me. Then the teacher pulled me over and told me to sit in silent lunch and then told me that she was going to write me up an office referral. Yeah, you've got to be super petty to do this. Probably the most bullshit way to be written up in the history of office referrals. Like, there are kids at recess who are literally threatening to frick each other's mom, but yet you write me up for not wanting to be friends with someone. That's just messed up. You might as well have written me up for wearing a Bagel Bite shirt or something. That's how stupid this situation was. So this is a pretty difficult thing to explain to my parents. However, they seemed to be on my side. They thought that this was overall a really stupid situation and they were pretty upset at my teacher. Now, whenever I get into trouble at school, my parents would punish me severely. However, they were on my side here. They originally thought that this was a joke at first. But then after realizing it was real, they of course were on my side and were pretty pissed off at my teacher for writing me up over something that does not deserve a punishment at all. My parents told me that there would be no punishment at home for this. While school might punish me, they wouldn't, which makes sense. Fortunately, it seems like my vice principal felt the same way as my parents. His direct words were, "This whole incident should have never caused an office referral to be written up." So when you get written up, you get different punishments such as detention, an in-school suspension, an out-of-school suspension, or more. I should know that me and my vice principal discussed this that Monday after the referral was written. He said that one day of silent lunch on Friday was already too much punishment. So he basically told my math teacher that she was not allowed to put me in silent lunch. I believe my teacher put me in silent lunch indefinitely. So good thing I had my vice principal on my side. Me and everyone else on the team would go on to joke about this for years to come. Even today as a rising senior, I joke about the situation with people I didn't even go to intermediate school with, since I go to an early college now rather than a traditional high school like everyone else. And even we joke about this situation today. So how about we move on from that. Now we're going to do reviews in science, English, and math. Getting prepared for our end of grade test, or EOGs. Well, we only had 2 EOGs, being for English and math. For science, it was a final exam. So the way EOGs are graded is that they are scaled between 1 to 5. 5 is extremely good, 4 is really good, 3 is average, 2 is below average, and then 1 is shitty. EOGs are given the grades 3 and through 8. From 3rd to 5th grade, I made 2s in English and 4s in math. In 5th grade, I made a 5 in science. Final exams are not graded like EOGs, as science EOGs are only for grades 5 and 8, so it was just a percentage score. Anyways, we of course were getting prepared for these by doing a review of everything we learned throughout the year. I remember one time for science, we reviewed outside. Nothing got done that day, by the way, but it was still cool nonetheless. Another thing too is that this time is generally very stressful for everyone. One way our school helped us deal with the stress was by getting some van from a dumpster. Everyone was allowed to hit the van once with an axe. I had a hard time holding the axe, but I still hit the van. It was really cool. Chase, on the other hand, went full on beast mode on this van. Like, he almost hit the van over from his swing. While it was not surprising, it still was super cool to see the van almost tip over. So now on to sidetrack to AR. So at this point, I had acquired over 200 AR points for the whole year. I only doubled my goal in the 4th quarter, but I still had over 200 points. As a result, I was invited to participate in an after-school reward. This is where we would have someone take a picture of us reading a book with a green screen behind us. The green screen would have a background or environment from the book, so it was kind of like us reading while actually in the book we were reading. Now, I thought that this was a pretty stupid way to celebrate 200 points, so I was going to reject this reward and was going to go home and play video games instead, but Mom stepped in and told me that I had to do it. Since Mom said I had to do it, I had to do it. I really did not enjoy it as expected. My picture was overall super cringy. It was me reading The Hunger Games with the cornucopia behind me, just overall super cringy. Thank God I don't have any remains of that. So now let's discuss EOGs. So the English EOG was on May 30th, the math on May 31st, and then the science final exam on June 1st. They all went pretty smoothly. However, the grades stood out really well. So in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, I made 2s on my English and 4s on my math. They never changed, but 6th grade changed that. Because I had an incredible English teacher, I managed to bring the 2 all the way up to a 4. I believe this is one of the biggest improvements on an EOG score on the team. For math, I made a 5. As for science, it was not graded like EOGs as it was just a final exam. I believe I made a 93 on it, so I did really well. So that means that yes, we are now in June. The last day of school was just a week ahead, as it was on June 7th. But there was actually quite a bit to talk about that month of June, so let's talk about it. So on June 2nd, we watched a movie from I think 1984. It was about students going into space. Really weird movie. Anyways, after we finished watching this movie, we made bottle rockets. They were fun to make. Afterwards, we all went outside and shot them. As for mine, it didn't shoot that high. In fact, I believe my bottle actually hit someone in the face. That was really funny, but it was a fun day. Also want to mention that June 2nd was the last day of Encores. Here we had music, but there was also a pretty petty incident that happened here just like with the new kid. So the last day of school was in 5 days, so as you can expect, nobody wanted to do anything. Not only that, but all of our tests were finished, so we had no motivation to really do anything. This really angered our music teacher, who was trying to get us to learn something, so she just freaked the hell out and told us that if anyone talked one more time, she was going to write the entire class up. People still talked, but she never wrote all of us up, since it would take so long to do. But damn, lady, it's the end of the year, so give us some slack. Then came Friday, June 3rd. So on this day, we got our yearbooks. I'm very happy I ordered a yearbook, as I actually used it a ton for this story time, along with of course the normal talking to others and just deep thought. Anyways, after getting our yearbook, the school gathered all the 6th graders outside so that we could sign each other's yearbook and stuff. This would be where I met 2 new friends. One of them was a very prominent figure in Storytime, being Robbie. Yep, the same Robbie who is an admin on my Discord server, as well as the same Robbie who participates in Pokemon Showdown streams. So me and Robbie often joke about how in Storytime 10, I said we met in 7th grade. That's not true, it was actually 6th grade. The way I know this is because he actually signed my 6th grade yearbook. Me and Robbie were on different teams in both 6th and 7th grade, but yet we still became friends in 6th grade just because of this situation. I don't remember what started it, but we basically started talking about it and then he signed my yearbook and that was that. The other friend I met was a kid named Casey. So me and Casey became really good friends in 7th grade as well as 8th grade before he moved. He was overall a pretty cool kid. He was a little edgy, but still cool nonetheless. So that brings us to the second to last day of school, being Monday, June 6th. So this was a pretty eventful day. This was when we had the Pbis Award for the entire year. I believe you had to have a total of like 800 stamps and had no more than 4 office referrals. I had over 800 stamps. I had only 1 referral, so I was eligible to go. So this Pbis Award was a field trip to the YMCA. I'm pretty sure like every other kid in the country who went to a public school in the 21st century, you've probably been on a field trip to the YMCA, because I have, multiple times actually. However, this is the last of those trips I ever took. So how did it work? Well, we were split into 2 groups. One group did swimming first and the other did exercise, and the other group started with the exercises and then swimming. I was in the groups that started with swimming first. So swimming really didn't have much going for it. I mean, I believe there was a swimming test that you had to do to go to deep end, which I of course passed. So I went to the deep end. I also remember playing with this girl. We splashed each other a ton while at the pool. We would go on to become great friends in 7th grade, but then around the end of 7th grade, I believe she moved to Virginia, so I don't remember too much about her, but I do remember us splashing each other a ton. That was fun. Now for the exercises. I really don't remember much about them, except one. So we were in this one place where this old man, he said that he had 3 riddles, and that if we solved all 3 of them, he would get us on ESPN and a bunch of other shit that you could easily tell was fake. His riddles were pretty easy to solve, and I remember him shouting that we were all going to be on ESPN. I wonder if this dude even knows what ESPN is. They're a sports news outlet. They don't care about a bunch of 6th grader who just solved 3 riddles. So that's all I got for this trip. I don't remember too much about this trip since it was pretty inconvenient overall, but I remember that stuff. Now let's talk about the last day of school, June 7th, 2016. You might recognize this day from Storytime 24, as this was one of the best days of my life, which it was. So let's discuss it. So this was a very short day. Mom took me to school, but instead of driving back, she actually went to the gym with many of the other parents as we were doing an award ceremony. 6th grade had their first, so we got that out of the way. Nothing really happened in between Mom dropping me off and the award ceremony, so let's discuss the award ceremony. So I only won 1 reward. However, I also did get a shout out for making all A's the entire school year. You basically got a shout out if you made all A's or if you made all A's and B's all year. They called you and you got to stand up. I was the first one to be called for all A's, so that felt really nice. As for the award, it was for earning over 200 AR points that year. That's a lot for just 1 year. In fact, that was the most AR points I think I ever got from 1st grade all the way through 8th grade. But who got the most AR points? Well, there was this one girl who got, I believe, 800 points. Yeah, she had no competition either. Like, that's just insane. And I thought my 200 points was impressive. Anyways, envying beside, I was still very happy and proud of all my accomplishments from 6th grade school year. So after the award ceremony, my mom signed me out and took me to her school. So as most of y'all know, my mom's a teacher. She actually had her class to be with another class in order to attend my award ceremony. So afterwards, she took me to her school and I got to talk to her class and all. They were 4th graders, and it was their last day of elementary school. So I got to answer any questions they had about intermediate school and all that. Pretty cool. And then around 11 o'clock, my grandmother came over to pick me up. She also had my little sister with her, as she had just finished the 3rd grade. Anyways, she took us to this restaurant. They were still serving breakfast, so therefore, we ate breakfast. That was a great meal. And then that afternoon, I really did not remember much. Of course, at around 5:30, my dad got home. Mom went grocery shopping. She would not arrive until 7 o'clock. So let's talk about Mom arriving back home. So she went grocery shopping, but food was not the only thing that she bought. She also bought a Wii U. So at the beginning of the school year, my parents promised that they would buy me a Wii U if I made all A's that year. And since I did, they rewarded me with a Wii U. It also came with Super Mario Maker, which was the game I so heavily wanted. So I believe I stayed up to about 3 o'clock that night playing Super Mario Maker. Really great memories of learning how the game works and just building my own levels in general. So that's 6th grade. Before writing the script for this story time, I did not think it would be very long because I thought that I would not remember much, and I had a good reason for that. I'm currently a rising senior, so that should tell you just how long ago these events were. It wasn't like my junior year story time where I wrote the events while they were happening, so it was a little difficult to remember this stuff, but I think I did a good job remembering this stuff. So that's all I got for today's story time. Next week, on July 16th, 2021, I'll be talking about struggling with depression. Anyways, that's all I got, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye! Alright. Looks like nobody attended the stream, so I'm just gonna go